Have you ever had one of those moments where you said, oh, I'll just go paint that thing? What could go wrong? Well, today I want to tell the story of one of my really good friends who had this exact thought early in his painting career. And I want to talk through what happens and how what I'm going to call naive confidence can bite us in the butt, whether we are a beginner or whether we are a very experienced artist. That being said, I think this is going to be especially applicable for those of you who are not working professionally or are a little bit earlier in your painting journeys, because I think those of us who have been painting for a really long time, whether it's professionally or not, have probably already had this experience and have learned some key lessons from it. So to backtrack a little bit, I want to give a little bit more information on this story. I was talking with a couple of really accomplished and pretty well-known painter friends, and we were sharing stories of what it was like earlier in our painting careers. And one friend talked about how pretty early on, like before he had a lot of experience with oil painting, he woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm going to go paint in my backyard. What could go wrong? And the answer was just about everything. If you can think back to your early painting days, or you have painted outside before and you remember what those early experiences were like, you can probably guess some of the things that happened. Everything from rushing through the painting and trying to chase the light to struggling to get in an accurate drawing when painting from a landscape around you versus something like a photograph. But I think it's worth speaking to what happens internally when we do these things. And I see this happen quite a bit with a number of artists. It's not just artists who are early in their journeys or artists who are going out and painting from life for the first time or painting plein air for the first time. I see this pretty regularly with painters who just want to try something new. The attitude is often, well, I'm just going to give this a go. What could go wrong? And I'll be real, like the answer is not a lot. Like, this is painting. The worst that can happen is we make a bad painting. Full stop. Creating something that we're not totally proud of or that doesn't feel successful is typically only going to affect us. It's not going to hurt anybody around us or anything like that. But nonetheless, what can happen is that we wind up feeling quite discouraged coming away from this. And if you went into the painting without a really strong sense of planning and without a sense of what could go wrong, oftentimes what I find in that situation is when something does go wrong, you really can't tell what it was, and that can feel really overwhelming. So a painter who has had pretty good success working off of photographs or doing drawing versus painting or working in black and white versus color or whatever the case may be, might kind of come into this with a real sense of confidence, try something new that's pretty challenging and not have a sense of what challenges they're really in for, and then come away from that feeling like maybe I'm not cut out to do this after all. And that's what I really want to zero in on today. And I want to discuss this by taking a look at what I've learned to do by comparison. So what I would do instead of kind of throwing myself into the deep end with a particular painting. So my process for tackling a painting that might be challenging or something that I haven't done before goes something like this. First of all, I really like to look at paintings by other painters of a similar subject or that was painted in similar conditions. Basically, a painting that looks something like the end result of what I think I should get out of this experience. And I want to look at that painting and I want to dissect it based on what would it actually be like to paint that piece. So for instance, you see me paint a lot of portraits on this channel, but you don't see me paint a ton of figures. If I wanted to throw myself into a big multi-figure composition and I said, what's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst that could happen is that I actually have a lot more skills painting faces than I do painting the whole of human anatomy. And maybe I am more drawn to faces than I am to figures. So maybe I would run into technical difficulties with the anatomy. Maybe I would feel kind of discouraged coming out of this. And I have really similar guidelines for everything from the light to the composition to whether I'm painting from a photo or from life or from outside. Having a list like this can be really, really helpful to help really show you what you need to plan for if you're trying something new. The other thing that can be quite helpful in this is having a mentor who can walk you through the challenges you might face with a particular painting assignment. If you're interested in working with a mentor, I have a video all about what to look for that I will link up in the upper right-hand corner. And if you're interested in working with me, I have a link below that you can check out in the comments. All right, until next time, happy painting.